Welcome to the Welsh Woodman Workshop. In tonight's video we're going to be wood turning an end grain style bowl out of this lovely piece of maple. Now this is my first video in a while. With a new teaching job I haven't had much time down in the workshop, but I'm thoroughly enjoying the job. The pupils are amazing and it's just such a great place to work. But we're on a 2-week half term now, so I thought I'd make the most of some of my time off and get a lot of turning projects and videos made for YouTube. So a really good friend of mine, Dave, he dropped off this lovely piece of green maple ready to turn, so we should get some long thin stringy shavings from this. So we're going to turn an end grain style bowl. Now the difference between an end grain style bowl and what you consider maybe a normal bowl, as we're cutting, we tend to be cutting more into side grain. Obviously you're going to get some end grain in there as we're turning the piece. So this is the log as it's been growing. We tend to cut the pith of the log out to the central growth ring, and that will reduce the amount of cracking and warpage that we tend to get then with the piece. Whereas this end grain style bowl, we've got the pith in and we're turning against end grain. So it's a little bit of a different style of turning, and I'm going to talk you through some of the different tools I tend to use in hollowing out these bowls compared to the side grain bowls. Right, let's get turning. So attached into the lathe to begin with, I'm going to be using a big chunky faceplate. Now you have to be quite careful when you're screwing into end grain because it's not as strong as side grain. But the way around it, I've got these really chunky screws. I think they're metal sheet screws originally, and they're really good at getting a strong hold, and they tend to be a little bit fatter than some of the wood screws as well. So I'm sighting in the middle, trying to get it balanced. Then I'm going to screw these in, and more the merrier with this because we want to make sure we got a strong hold. So the screwed in section is going to be removed anyway because that's going to be the centre of the bowl eventually. Just attach the faceplate to the lathe, making sure I've got full and free movement before I start working on it with my tools. Just turn them on, standing out the line of fire just in case. You get a little bit of a tapping noise there, that's from a fibre that's loose. I'm quite happy with that speed just to start off with, just get into the balance. Going to be using a bowl gouge with a Celtic rind just to get the profile in, and obviously a face visor. Now because we're using fairly green wood, it's not often as dusty as sort of seasoned wood, so that's an advantage there. So I'm checking that my tool is along the sort of centre line as I'm cutting. A little bit off-centred this. I just want to true up the face. So I'm just doing some push cuts to get into the centre. Now I'm trying to work with the side grain as much as I can, and you'll notice the difference between the side grain because I'm getting these long thin stringy shavings. When I'm working against the end grain, I'll get almost like porridge type shavings coming off, so like almost sawdust. So I'm just cutting all the way into the centre to get a nice flat levelled off. So that's the beauty, as soon as you get level with green wood, it just peels off like peeling an apple. Let's have a look how we're doing. So we can still see we've got quite a bit to go. This is the unlevel bit then we need to get rid of. We can start working these corners off, pushing them away. So we can do some push cuts out. So you see I've got the tool close to my body for support. Now I'm hitting air log on a lot of these edges because it's unlevel. So having the tool close to my body and moving with the tool with your body makes it far more efficient. I'm starting to rub the bevel of the tool so it floats along the edge, and I'm getting these side grain shavings coming off, so long, thin, stringy shavings, and this is probably the most satisfying part of wood turning for me, what I love the most, when you get a nice smooth cut and you're peeling the wood off. It's really so therapeutic. And listening to a bit of country music in the background as well made this even more enjoyable. So I'm starting to just push the cut all the way through. You can see it's nice and supported with the grain underneath the cut, so I'm not tearing it out as cutting. I'm starting to establish a foot for the bottom of this, so I like all my pieces to have some form of foot so they sit up from the table. I think they're just purely for aesthetics, they look a little bit nicer. And the foot size then is from my faceplate. So I'm just doing a sheer sort of cut backwards now. You notice I lifted my tool handle, and that's allowing me to get these thin stringy shavings as I'm rubbing that bevel, so that the grind angle of the tool all the way along to the rim, and I'm just removing material quickly to get the profile I want. Okay, let's have a look how we're doing. love turning green wood because we get the a really good finish just off the tool. I'm going to try and zoom in with the camera if I can. How am I going to do that? Take that off. So I love turning green wood because you get a nice clean finish. This is just off the tool, haven't done any sanding. Got a few little lines there that I could do with maybe potentially scraping out. But here's the profile itself. So if you look at the shapes, I've got like an OG style shape. I've left a little bit of bark on there just to add to the character. And we've got a little bit of an overhang as well in the bark, so it's not a complete circle, which I quite like about it. So we're going to do a slight undercut now, tiny undercut, potentially some scraping along the bottom just to clean this up and to allow it to sit flat. We're going to be putting a faceplate on. So we're going to need to measure the screws and how far we need to go away from the bottom, and that's going to give us our equal wall thickness throughout there. So as I only want to take off a tiny bit, I'm going to be using a scraper to do the slight undercut. So I want to bring my tool rest up, so we're cutting along the centre line. So my tool handle's up slightly so it's trailing as it's cutting. I find that works really well on end grain. We've got a very slight undercut on there, nice and flat then for the bottom. Right, we're going to get the whole thing flipped around, so it's exactly the same sort of principle. I'm going to attach the faceplate to the back and we're going to turn the inside. Whoa. So we can see the side sort of profile on this. Oh, still quite a heavy piece, full of moisture, and there's lots of this needs to be evaporating out of the piece. So we're going to remount this faceplate on the other side, get him hooked up to the lathe now. There's quite a nice sort of profile. I'm going to try my best to try and keep this natural edge bark piece. Right, let's see how this goes. So we're going to true up the top again with the bowl gouge. Then when we get to deep hollowing this, we're going to change over to a hook style tool. I'm going to go for a 40-40 grind, so I just prefer that one hollowing out.
So I'm just going to do some pull cuts along the top and some push cuts to face this off, so get it all nice and level. So push cuts into the centre now, taking material away gradually, really nice and slowly. I've got the lathe speed up a little bit higher now because it's more balanced. And then I'm going to start establishing next, as soon as I get this flat, the wall thickness and the rim I want the bowl to have.
So I'm going to start establishing the walls now of this.
So again, doing push cuts in from the bark itself into the rim. Now some people find hollowing from the centre out with end grain things far easier. Just found by sort of manipulating and cutting into the side grain, you can remove material far more efficiently. Which I think some people commented on my last end grain video. I think it was Crackerjack that commented that it was sort of fighting the grain, and that can be true. As you can see here, I'm working with the grain. It's peeling it off, and it's really satisfying. And my shop dog, Connie the Border Collie, she absolutely loves the wood shavings, and spends a lot of her time chasing them around the workshop when she's not cutched up by the fire. I thought I'd put this in because it's quite fun to see, and a lot of my subscribers have requested it as well.
Come on then, come here, come on. Yeah. Oh, I love you. Come there. So I'm going to be using a hook tool. So this is one by Kel McNaughton, just to hollow out some of the middle.
Really like using this tool because it does hog away the material pretty quickly, especially with end grain style sort of hollow forms and bowls like this. So it'd be a combination of using this hook tool to get rid of the majority of the centre, to get it nice and flat, then working on my walls. Now the important things with the walls is I am working down, getting a good surface finish before I move further down into the bowl, otherwise that will affect the overall finish. So I can't go back later on and sort of turn the walls more because they're pretty thin. So I want to get a really good finish before I move further down in the bowl. And I've gradually worked all the way down to the bottom. You can see I'm taking tiny cuts, so I'm not trying to hog it all the way in one go. And I'm going to get a gradual sort of curve, or in this case, trying to go with the grain pattern, more of a flattish sort of bottom. I'm using a negative rate scraper now, just to scrape at the bottom to get like the nice profile against all those end grain rings.
We're finished. This is a little bit of a flat bottom. I think it looks quite nice for the piece. Normally I do a gradual curve, but I wanted to keep in this sort of green pattern there. So I've just got some wax that I've mixed in with some turpentine. So I'm going to help seal in the grain, because this is all end grain. It's just going to soak it up pretty much. Now, this will help the water dry out nice and slowly. I've done this on the outside as well. I've got as an even wall thickness as I can towards the bottom. It's quite thick on the bottom. So what this is going to do is just seal in the wood for a little bit and help it dry out slowly. Now I'm going to let this acclimate in the workshop for about a month probably. Then I'll bring it inside and we'll see how it goes from there. So sometimes these will work beautifully, you won't have any cracks and things even over time, and sometimes they crack and split and it doesn't work out. So it's very much, let's see what we get at the end of it. But this is going to be about a good 6 months before I can do anything else with this piece anyway. I'll probably refinish this. So I've got two options. I can either do a return and get another new finish over the top, or I can, with this wax then, is just help it buff up. Now sometimes what can happen, because we've got that moisture contained in the cells of the wood, so if imagine this is like a load of drinking straws, that moisture can cause the wood to mould, which is another thing we might have to deal with later on. So we'll see how we get on with this. So here's the finished rough turned piece. Had a lot of fun making this one. Had the headphones plugged in, listening to country music, and just really relaxed making this. So I hope you've enjoyed watching as much as I've enjoyed making. A little bit of an OG type shape on the body itself, just to make it a little bit lighter from the table. Undercut on the rim. And now my secret for hiding these little holes is I mix up a bit of sawdust from this green tin bowl with a bit of PVA glue, and I put it in the holes as like a filler, and because it's the same colour as the bowl, it matches really well, and they're quite hard to spot after you've sanded them back. So a little tip for you if you want to hide those at home. Now the profile itself, I've tried to match the wall thickness as much as I can. A little bit more of a flat bottom on this than I normally do, but I think it sort of suits the piece in bringing out the rings there at the bottom. So I hope you've really enjoyed tonight's video. If you haven't done so already, remember to hit the subscribe button and the bell icon down below, as that'll allow you to watch more videos that I have in my channel and future videos to come. So I hope you have a great night. Diolch yn fawr, nos da.